Hi, this is Sergeant Beast Larson, writing use of force reports. Whether you're police or corrections, you probably have department policy, designated questions that are asked, forms to fill out, and you've been through this before. I want to help you because I've been writing these since 1992. Remember some things like how many officers in relation to how many suspects. Is it the end of your shift? Are you physically tired? Have you suffered an injury during the incident? That's going to escalate. The word here is escalation. How do you justify escalating or going from plan A to plan C or D and skipping B? I'm going to read some things from the Forth Prong of Graham versus Connor. Now, these are not the only reasons. They're not the only. But keep these in mind as you're articulating and you're putting things in writing. This can become very useful. I'm sure a lot of you have been writing use of force reports frequently lately with the way the world is here in 2020. It says the other factors found within the Forth Prong, Graham versus Connor, attributed to our decision-making process when known in advance to justify a deployment are also known as other articulable facts and may include but are not limited to your prior knowledge, your, meaning the officer, prior criminal history of the suspect that may include violent offenses, prior actions or known violence by the suspect that may include physical resistance to arrest or attempts to do so. Right there, those first two things. You have prior knowledge of the suspect. Do you know that he's been violent before? If you've been a police officer or corrections a couple years, I'll just say 2 years to throw it out, you have a really good idea. You've met people over and over. Frequent flyers, as they call them. Make sure you put that in your report, that you know them and how you know them, or if you've had prior contact with them. Are they on probation or parole status? Is it in relation to a violent crime? That's important. We get to know the people that we're policing. Potential for third strike candidate, if applicable, in your state. Which means if you know probation, parole status, known felon, all the things I've mentioned so far, and if you know this is going to be their third strike, they're going to want to fight to the death. They're not going to do hard time. That's what that means. Preassault indicators. That talks about their posturing. Does their shirt say Bruce Lee on there? Stuff like that. Gritting their teeth, taking their glasses off, laying them down. I'd tell people they're under arrest, and when I thought things were going to get physical, I'd take off my Smokey Bear hat, lay it neatly on the hood of my car, and when they'd say, "What'd you do that for?" and I said, "Because I know it's getting ugly." Think about these things. Size, age, physical condition of the officer and suspects. You have to relay this. Sometimes this can be important. If you're I started police work in 1992, 5'9", 135 pounds. Most every use of force report I had, I listed that. I am 5'9", 135 pounds. The suspect is 200 pounds, 240. List that. You got their driver's license, you got their ID. Look on there, write it down. That can become important. Known violent gang membership or affiliation. Known or perceived physical abilities of the suspect, i.e. karate, judo, MMA. If you have prior knowledge, if you've seen them on TV, on MMA, they show up on your cell phone, under your UFC channel that you're watching, and all of a sudden you're in real life. I'll give you an example. I went to a house for domestic violence. The back door was shattered, glass was shattered, but I knew the house belonged to one of the WWE professional wrestlers, and he was a former pro football player. I won't say any names, and he's passed away now, but I knew his potential for violence. Yeah, you're going to take backup, you're going to be ready, and you're going to go from plan A to plan D on this guy. He was very violent. Previous violence or mental history known to the offender at the time. Perception of the use of alcohol or drugs by the suspect. Perception of the suspect's mental or psychiatric history based on specific actions. Talking to themselves, mental health history. Are they talking? The paranoid schizophrenic, the bipolar. I went to do a drug warrant, and I'm trying to give you helpful hints and just throw in something here and there. I went with the narcotics guys to do a drug warrant. I was in uniform. And the suspect that we talked to, young male, kept looking up in a tree and saying, "The Martians are looking at me." And he was literally shaking and scared to death. That's a clue. Write that down in your report. That went very early in our report, and we said it more than once. The availability and proximity of two weapons and or prior history related to weapon possession and use of the suspect. Now, we all know the good old crack houses, you know, you go up the stairs and there's a little concrete, let me put my hands over here, that little concrete square, you know, when you get up the stairs, you put your hand on. Officers, police officers, when you get to a house that's like that, grab the concrete, see if it lifts. I lived in a house last year down in Georgia that the concrete lifted up and you could stash guns or weapons or anything in there. And if you didn't know to lift it up, pay attention to things like that. Availability to weapons. Environmental factors. Have you ever been in a physical fight, police officers, in the heavy rain, in the snow, sleet? Make sure you put that down. And then I'd go back and get on the computer and put the daily weather report for that time, print it off and put that in your arrest report to give you some proof. You know, get something from the weather station, the weather channel, get proof of that. Very hard to fight somebody in the snow and the ice. Put that down. And then while you're doing that, what kind of shoes do you have? Take a picture of them, officers. Take a picture and put it in an arrest folder. It's just a picture. Take a picture of the suspect too, if you can, how he was dressed. You know, in the wintertime, I got in a foot pursuit. Some guys on the interstate on a traffic stop. I had snow boots on, my winter clothes on, 10 inches of snow on the ground. These guys had jogging suits and tennis shoes on, and everybody in the car had a warrant. Well, that was a clue. I called for backup as soon as I saw that. Everybody's got on jogging suits, light jacket like this in heavy snow. They're prepared to run. Guess what? They ran. The number of suspects compared to the officer involved and availability of backup, police backup. That's very important. Injury to the officer or prolonged duration of the incident. The officer gets hit in the head and bleed. We see videos and the police officers bravely fighting through incidents, covered in blood on the news. Backup shows up. Never give up, number one. And I've had another video I talk about called a commitment to win. You do not give up. You have to live. You have spouse, loved ones, boyfriend, girlfriend, children, parents. You got a big families and friends you've got to live for. Officer on the ground or other unfavorable position. The officer gets knocked to the ground. There's two suspects. They're on top. They're reaching down. Very hard, even if you're good at ground fighting, to fight two suspects, three suspects on the ground. You have to mention that. Mention what exactly they're doing. Mention what you're doing to protect yourself. And as you're doing this, how do you hit your panic button? Do you have to talk? Can you reach down your radio and hit the little orange button and it goes off and the dispatch shows your badge number and knows who you are and they know where you're at? Think about these things. How are you going to explain this? And the last thing that was printed, characteristics or perceptions of suspect being armed and not previously searched. You got to search everybody. And if you haven't searched them yet, you have to assume they're armed and watch their body language. Watch how they react. Watch how they talk. Do they start turning? Are they blading their feet, taking a karate stance? You start seeing stuff like this, you need to get them on the wall, put your hands on the car or something, truck, and get a good pat down real quick. Get some back up there. You're not in a safe place if you haven't searched somebody. You're not in a safe place if you're alone and you're outnumbered. You're not in a safe place under these weather environments. So you've got to think, articulate, and write all this stuff. I know you've been through this before. Something as a defensive tactics instructor, it always troubled me, helping people to write reports. I'm not helping them to lie, cheat, and steal anything. I'm not helping to falsify a document. I'm just reminding. I'm gonna hold this back just enough. Hold still. Screenshot this, blow this up, print this off. Graham versus Connor, the Forth Prong. Help yourself articulate and write these reports. It's here for us. Don't pass it up. Hope you enjoyed this. Hit the like, hit the share. Don't forget to subscribe. Subscribing is very important. 470 members now, almost 50,000 views. This will be in a playlist, use of force. There's other videos explaining use of force 101, how not to get sued. That's a very important, critical video, how not to get sued. And I explained the 3 elements: violating your policy, violating the suspect's civil rights, violating criminal law. Watch that video. It's not a long video. Very educational, entertaining, but it's very important to protect yourself. Have a great day.